Go station.
Go station. Let's go. Pokemon goes to the station, am I right?
Let's goes to the go station.
Goes.
Wait, all the way back. How far?
Not too far. I mean, like, here-ish.
That's far.
Okay.
It's like that's from like there to there again. That's
yeah.
We walked that far on accident, dude.
Yeah. I'm here on the Little Miami Scenic Bike Trail, right outside of Go Station, and right behind me is some unsuspecting abandoned buildings. And what these buildings don't show you is the fact that dozens of people died here. Gunpowder mills used to be a lot more common in the United States than they are today. In fact, there's only one in the entire country. But in the 1800s, dozens of them used to dot this area along the Little Miami River, and the Go Station powder mills were a part of that trend. This town is just a bit south of the notorious for many reasons Yellow Springs, and it's named after the Irish immigrant to America, Samuel Go, who bought a lot of property in this area. In 1845, the Austin brothers bought this property from one of Go's descendants, and it was mainly because there was a scythe factory, right? One of the scythes is like, whack, right? And it's because there was a scythe factory that they bought it here, and the next year they turned it into a gunpowder mill. But the gunpowder mill immediately started falling into very lethal problems. You know, by 1849, at least 5 people had died on this property because of explosions. Workers here would have to wear socks over their shoes because back in this day, you know, shoes would have nails in them, and the nails would come into contact with the floorboards and they would cause sparks, things like that. The littlest thing could set off an entire explosion and cause a lot of damage. This area along the Little Miami River was a very ideal place to set up a gunpowder mill because it had a lot of willow trees, and willow trees are very useful in making charcoal, which is very important for making gunpowder, right? Gunpowder has a lot of moving parts to it, and just this geographic location fit a lot of the bill. So there's probably a really good reason that we don't make gunpowder in America anymore. During the 1800s and the 1900s, everywhere from Ohio to Massachusetts to Georgia to Illinois, there were gunpowder explosions at mills. And even as recently in 2021, the only gunpowder factory in the United States actually exploded. And it was out of commission for a few years, and it was a problem that the Department of Defense had to deal with, right? And so I guess nowadays we just offload that onto other countries. Back in the day, you had these like old-fashioned company towns over in Appalachia, right? Where, you know, the workers would buy from the general store that was owned from the company, or rent their houses from the company. It was just like that here in Go Station. And, you know, a decent amount of people lived here. So gunpowder mills across America experienced a turning point come the Civil War. And this is mainly because people at the time thought that it was a very good get-rich-quick scheme, right? It was kind of like the drop shipping of the day. But unlike drop shipping, all of the workers were paid pretty decently because the job was very hazardous. So one of the biggest explosions here was on March 1st, 1886. This is when a boiler exploded in a storage room, and in this resulting explosion, 3 people died and a 10-foot deep crater was left in the earth. The 3 workers who died were Michael Haney, Christy McCann, and Henry Frank.
Where would you say is about 10 feet?
Yeah.
10 feet's like, that's deep, man. That's
a
crater.
Yeah, 10 feet is pretty hard to visualize, but just imagine just kind of like this first floor all the way up until like the roof starts to triangulate. You know, that's about 10 feet. That's yeah, about where that line is, you know, from the floor to that.
That into the ground.
Into the ground,
just
yes.
Gone, missing.
Yes.
There's that much earth missing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think that I read that like a donkey was blown somewhere.
That's insane.
Yeah, it was pretty nasty. The shockwaves from the explosion were felt as far away as Xenia and Springfield, and there were even like little tremblings felt in Columbus and Cincinnati. And so because this was a very notorious explosion throughout the entire region, the company had a very hard time recruiting workers for a very long time. Ghost Station, that it gets its name from when people would shriek, "There she goes," after every single explosion. Now that's not true. Like I said, it was named after Samuel Go, but even into the 1900s, I could find about at least 4 explosions that happened here, and at least 2 of those were lethal. However, a 1908 explosion killed Harry Hickman and critically injured Gus Reinsberger. And a 1917 blast killed Gus Reinsberger, Emil Reinsberger, and Irvin Crable. In 1920, the mills were sold to the Aetna Powder Company, and in 1921, they were sold to the Hercules Powder Company. And then in 1922, they closed it for good. And there is a rumor that this is because the mills had one final explosion that just really, for lack of a better term, annoyed the Hercules Powder Company. But there isn't really evidence that I or anyone else could find for this. I don't know, the building looks a lot better than one would expect for a place that blew up. So why talk about Ghost Station? Well, these ordinary men were risking life and limb to provide for their families. Oftentimes, when we hear of tragedy, we get caught up in the fact that gore and guts happened there. We forget to name the real people and communities who these events affected. Because we do that, we don't take action when tragedy does happen, especially if it's common. Maybe this is because I can only find so many records online, but very few papers that I read from the time actually named the victims of the blasts. With Goes, it wasn't the dozens of lives lost there that ended the powder mill. It was probably just profit margins and dry accounting. Another thing that stuck out to me was how much had gone on so close to home. I'm sure wherever you live has a rich history as well. I encourage you to see what all you can find there and see what takeaways you can draw. Thank you for watching this video, and we'll have more soon to come.
Alright, Ali, that was a great day of filming.
Yep.
Good night, everybody. Do you make a bump 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 sound when you walk over those?
Bump, bump, bump.
Always wondered.
Is that like an Havana thing?
No, go rub your foot over that. In a car, have you ever gone off? Yeah. My grandpa used to go, "Ew, stop farting," and then he'd drive over the line. Like, "What did you eat today?"